Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced level English learners. Is homework beneficial? Should kids have homework? Or is homework a waste of time? Today, we are going to look at this debate, practice thinking in English, and learn some useful vocabulary at the same time. Head over to the Thinking in English blog for a full transcript of today's episode. Check out my Instagram page, Thinking in English Podcast, for more great content. And leave a like, review, or rating wherever you are listening right now. Here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is available in the description of the podcast or over on my blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Assignment. Assignment. A piece of work given to someone, typically as part of their studies or job. For example, I have a lot of assignments to complete this week. To cater. To cater. To provide what is wanted or needed by someone or something. As in, the club caters for children below the age of 10. To memorize. To memorize. To learn something so that you will remember it exactly. As in, when I was at school, we were required to memorize vocabulary every week. Perspective. Perspective. A particular way of considering something. For example, he writes from a Marxist perspective. Achievement. Achievement. The act of achieving something, or finishing something successfully, or of achieving things in generally. For example, this school has a history of outstanding achievement. Detrimental. Detrimental. Causing harm or damage. For example, these chemicals have a detrimental impact on the environment. Prevalent. Prevalent. Existing very commonly or happening often. For instance, that disease is more prevalent among children. Social inequality. Social inequality. The condition of unequal access to the benefits of society. As in, universities have been accused of increasing social inequality. What should children do after they finish school? Should they have to finish their schoolwork or do extra assignments in the form of homework? Should they join clubs, play sports, learn the piano, or take swimming lessons? Should they go to cram schools or private classes to keep on studying or learning? Or should they be allowed to relax and rest after a day of studying at school? Depending on where you are from, you might have different perspectives on what children should do after school. Let me give you a few examples. In my case, in the UK, we would usually finish classes around 3 p.m. and leave school straight away. I would often have about an hour of homework, but not too much. And I played rugby in the evening twice a week. Compared to a lot of other countries, it was relatively relaxed. And a lot of the time, I'd just sit or watch TV or go and play in the park with my friends for a few hours. However, I used to be an elementary school and junior high school teacher in Japan. And I was amazed at how different children's lives were compared to my own experiences. My students would finish school around 4 p.m. and straight away begin their school clubs. We have clubs in the UK, but they don't take place every day like they do in Japan. After they finished with the clubs, many students would then head to cram school and continue studying with private tutors. And they also received a lot of homework. I'm sure your own country, culture, and experiences might be different to the UK and Japanese situations I've just described. But what students should do after school can be a controversial issue. In China, they once had a large and thriving after school education industry. Students from middle class families would attend extra education in an effort to get the best possible marks in the country's university entrance exams. This industry was big business until earlier this year. China decided to shut down and ban after school education schools. Rich families can still hire private tutors who come to their houses, but the schools that catered to millions of middle class children are no longer allowed to operate. Why? Well, part of the reason is for children's health and well being. The government was concerned that children were studying for far too long. Homework has a long history, probably as long as formal education has existed. Pliny the Younger, the famous writer from ancient Rome, demanded that his followers and supporters practice their speeches at home. And the word homework actually dates from Roman civilization. Moving through history, monks and religious scholars in the Middle Ages engaged in memorization exercises. For a long time, education was primarily available only to the people, or men, who wanted to study religion. They would spend their free time reciting and memorizing religious texts, which is kind of homework, I guess. As formal education became more widespread and common in the 19th century, the idea of homework was also developed. Beginning in German people's schools, students were given assignments or tasks to complete. And other European countries quickly copied the German approach, and it spread across the Atlantic Ocean to the United States as well. But the reception of homework has not always been positive. Did you know that homework was actually banned in California for children under 15 between the years 1901 and 1917? Education activists and reformers believed that homework would have a negative effect on the health of children. Homework remained unpopular until the middle of the 20th century. One major argument was that children should spend their free time helping their families and households. From the 1950s onwards, homework became increasingly popular. It was seen as a way of increasing the amount of education a child receives, and therefore improving a country's future economic and technological power. Research in the last 10 years suggests that the average American teenager spends around 1 hour a day doing homework, and high school students receive on average 3.5 hours of homework a week from each of their teachers. But is homework actually beneficial? Or do the negatives of homework outweigh the benefits? During the pandemic, when students spent their whole day studying at home, the concept of homework began to be questioned once again. I thought I'd present two different perspectives on homework, just like in my previous debate episodes. I want you all to listen to both sides of the argument, think about the main issues in English, and then decide for yourself whether homework is a good thing for children. So, is homework useful? Let's start with the arguments for yes. Yes, homework is beneficial or useful. First, proponents of homework argue that it improves students' achievement. More specifically, Research suggests that homework increases the chances of students entering college, improves grades, and increases average test scores. Let me tell you more details about this research. First, a study in the high school journal showed that students who spent over 30 minutes on homework a day averaged 40 points higher on tests than students who did no homework at all. Second, two meta studies on the impact of homework, so research papers which collected and compared many different studies, found that homework was effective in improving academic performance and achievement most of the time. And third, the Institute for the Study of Labor has demonstrated that homework leads to better grades and a higher likelihood to attend college. On average, boys who enter college in the US did over 3 hours extra homework at school every week. To really understand something, students need to apply what they learn by themselves. As children usually only remember about 50% of information in a class, homework is often essential to make sure students receive a full education. It allows them to practice and retain more information. Moreover, homework can teach useful life skills. Homework helps children and students to develop time management, self reliance, critical thinking, and discipline. All useful things for children to learn. Homework also allows parents and families to be involved with and keep track of children's education. Parents can understand the school curriculum, as well as their children's weaknesses and strengths. Evidence suggests that if parents are involved in a child's education, the child's grades are likely to increase. Now let's have a look at some arguments on the other side. For no, homework is not beneficial or useful. On the other hand, there are people who believe that homework is not beneficial or is even problematic. Some argue that too much homework can actually be detrimental. Homework, especially when given in large quantities, can lead to stress, sleep deprivation, exhaustion, weight loss, and other health problems. 82% of high school students in California reported that they were often or always stressed by schoolwork. Interestingly, high levels of homework are also connected to increased levels of cheating. 90% of middle school students in the US report that they have copied someone else's homework. In fact, I'm sure many of you listening today copied homework when you were young as well. High levels of high school and college students also report cheating on homework at least once. And in one study, 43% of parents admitted to finishing a child's homework. So, what is the point in homework if cheating is so prevalent? There is also an issue called the homework gap. Not all students are able to complete homework to the same level, and this was highlighted during the pandemic. Millions of children in countries like the UK and USA do not have access to strong internet connections, computers, or other devices to help them complete homework. Some children do not have the right materials at home, an adequate space to complete their homework, or a supportive family. Some studies have suggested that up to 95% of students need internet to complete all of their homework. But studies also reveal that up to 30% of American students do not have adequate internet connections. Homework often serves as a way to increase social inequality. The students who struggle to complete homework are often those without the resources to afford the internet, computers, or even desks in their houses. Instead, opponents of homework argue that education should take place predominantly in school, where all resources are shared equally. And finally, there is evidence that homework is not always helpful. In fact, there are a lot of studies that show homework is pretty pointless for young children. According to one study on elementary school students, homework had no association with achievement gains. Education researchers actually suggest that young children learn a lot more from not doing homework. Going outside, playing, and doing other activities are far more beneficial. So here is today's final thought. What do you think? Is homework beneficial? Should children be given homework to complete after school? On the one hand, homework has been shown to increase grades, involve parents in education, and teach children important life skills. On the other hand, homework can cause stress, increase cheating, increase social inequality, and might be pointless for young children. Personally, I think that the majority of education should take place in schools. Students should be given enough time and space to relax and enjoy themselves, and they shouldn't spend hours and hours doing homework after school. But I want to know your opinions. What do you think? Is homework beneficial? Can you think of an alternative to homework? Did homework help you when you were at school? Let me know your answers and your thoughts on these issues by leaving a comment on the Thinking in English blog, leave a comment on Spotify, or send me a message on Instagram. Thinking in English podcast is my Instagram name. And while you're over there, follow me and check out some of the other content I upload. If you really enjoy listening to Thinking in English, please consider giving us a rating or giving me a rating on Spotify or writing a review on Apple. My ambition is to become the #1 Spotify podcast for English learners. So we're very close to 2,000 ratings. So please leave me a 5-star rating if you can. And if you really, really, really enjoy listening to Thinking in English, why not support me over on Patreon? Patreon is a platform allowing fans of podcasts to support their favorite creators. Most people don't know, but I don't make any money from doing my podcast twice a week. So, yeah, I don't make any money. So I started a Patreon so that hopefully I can continue doing this over the next months, and maybe even years. So if you want to help me continue making the podcast, please go over to patreon.com/thinking in English. And if you sign up, you get some great rewards as well, like conversation clubs and bonus episodes. But thank you all so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.